Hello everyone, Russ Brown here, publisher of Rusted Iron Games, and I'm here today to talk to you about Template Races Half Humans, which is one of our products that we have available. This one has actually been available for a few years. I originally released this one in 2017, but it was kind of a standalone product, and we are now turning the idea of template races into an entire line. So we just released the second one in the line, which is Template Races Tieflings. And I just made a video on that as well to talk about that. So I will provide a link to that in the description. And also, so this Template Races Half Humans is a PDF release. It is available on ttrpg, and it's also available on the Rusted Iron Games web store. You can see I've got the PDF open in a PDF reader right here. Over here on the left-hand side, you can see kind of underneath my picture, you can see that it's fully bookmarked. You can jump to any section within the document that you want just by clicking on any of these here in your PDF reader. Let me go ahead and go into the full screen part of the so you can see it better. So this is the cover. This has a great piece of art. This is original art by Liz Quartz of our half-elf fighter that we have for Rusted Iron Games. And just let me talk to you about the Pathfinder compatibility logo that we have down here. We are changing all of our first edition products to have this logo at the bottom and adding the words first edition underneath there because we are now releasing products for both first edition and second edition of Pathfinder, and you'll find the logos on all of our products going forward to have the logo at the bottom, and then it'll say either first or second edition just to make it clear to you like what product, what each product supports which version of the game. So let me go into the title page right here. This just has an introduction. So let me tell you first of all what the idea for Half Humans is. The idea for Half Humans is that we have had half orcs and half elves in our games for a long time, but most fantasy settings, that's all you get. There's a few other exceptions, like I think the old Dark Sun D&D setting had mules, which was MUL, which was a half dwarf, half human race, I believe. And then, but the idea is like, why can't we have half human gnomes or half human halflings or pretty much any other combination of human with any other 0 hit dice playable race? And then, so that's the idea, and the concept on how to make that happen is what I call a template race, which is based on the idea of a monster template. In Pathfinder and D&D 3.5, you have monster templates, such as like you could have a fiendish template, and you could put that on any monster stat block in the game and turn it in, like a fiendish or half fiend template. You could put a half fiend template on a hippopotamus and come up with a half fiend hippopotamus, right? You could do that with anything. So the idea is to create a template race based on the same kind of concept of a monster template, which is basically just a set of guidelines on how to make changes to the basic race that you want to change up. So in this case, half humans, this half human template you can apply to any 0 hit dice race in the game, and a 0 hit dice race is one that has all of its hit dice defined by what class levels it takes, right? So if you have a human who's got 4 levels of fighter, he's going to have D10s for all his hit dice, whereas a different human who has rogue levels will have D8s for all of his hit dice in Pathfinder. So that's the idea. Basically, it just goes, the format of the race template follows pretty closely along with a monster template. Just first of all explains what the template is and what kind of creatures you can apply it to. In this case, 0 hit dice races. But there's also kind of a note, I put a limitation that it's not really intended to be added to races that are already thematically part human. Like, it doesn't make sense to put this template on a half elf or a half orc, or some of the other ones like Aasimar, Tieflings, Changelings, Dampiers. They all have partially human heritages in any way, so it doesn't really make sense. So then let's talk about our ability score modifiers. In Pathfinder, you're probably familiar with the fact that humans just get a +2 that they can add to any of their stats as they choose. So all humans are different. They have a varied nature, so they can just add +2 to whichever ability score they want. Most other races, basic races in Pathfinder, have a +2 to one of their physical stats, like strength, dexterity, constitution. They have a second +2 to one of their mental stats, which is intelligence, wisdom, charisma, and then they have a -2 to one of the other stats. So they have a +2. They have two different +2s, one physical, one mental, and then a -2. So this ability score, this is very specific. I give directions on how to combine those two concepts together. Basically, you start with the physical abilities, and you check your physical abilities, and whatever bonus you have, that base race has, you reduce it by 2. And then for every bonus that you reduce by 2, you can pick, you take a penalty, a -2 penalty, and reduce that to 0 as well. And I do, in order to try and be balanced, I give specific orders on which to check them in. And then you do the same thing for your mental abilities. You reduce the bonuses to the mental ability scores by 2 each. And then for every bonus you reduce by 2, you can reduce a penalty, a -2 penalty to like a 0. And then when you're all done, you get that human modifier of +2 that you can add to anything that doesn't still have a modifier. So if you followed that, it's much easier probably to read it and do it once or twice than maybe to follow me explaining it. Any of the basic races that I've just talked about that have 2 +2s and a -2 are basically going to end up with 0s across the board and then a +2 to any stat they want, just like humans. But when you start getting to some of the weirder races that have +4s or -4s, like orcs have a +4 to strength, that +4 is going to be reduced to only a +2, and then you're going to reduce their penalties accordingly. So you'll basically end up with still a +2 on strength, and then a second +2 that you can apply to any other one. In fact, let's skip forward real quick and look at the half-human orc that I did create as an example. So let's see. Okay, so here's the half-human orc. It ends up, because it starts with a +4 to strength, it ends up with a +2 to strength, and then it had it still has a -2 to wisdom, and it still has a -2 to charisma, and then that second +2 from humans, you can add to any of your other ones that don't have an ability modifier. So you can basically have a +2 to strength, and then a second +2 that you can add either to dexterity, constitution, or intelligence, and then you still have a -2 to wisdom and a -2 to charisma. That's how the orc turned out after doing the little procedure that I described. And when you have something that's been reduced to 0, that's considered not to have a modifier anymore, right? So for when you want to add the +2. So that's basically it. That's maybe the most complicated part about this is to kind of just read these and then do it. And I gave it specific orders on what order to reduce the penalties in based on my feelings about how much the different ability scores are used for different things within the game. So that's basically how ability scores work. Maybe that sounds a little complicated. I think if you read through it, and then do it once or twice, you'll get the hang of it, no problem. Then we just talk about how to create the other racial traits for half humans. Type and subtype. You basically says half humans have the humanoid type. If the base race has the humanoid type, then half humans have the subtypes of the base race plus they gain the human subtype. So like for a half human elf, they're basically going to be humanoid because both humans and elves are humanoids, and they're going to have two subtypes of both elf and human. If you have something different, like, for example, a race with the plant type that gains the half-human template would become humanoid, and then since plant is a different type than humanoid, they gain augmented plant, and then they have the human subtype as well. So that means they still get things that are affected by plants. They still have the plant type. Size. Your size is going to be informed based by your base race. It's not exactly 1-to-1, but if you have a medium or large base race, you become medium half-human. If your base race is small or smaller, you're small sized. If you're huge or larger, you become large sized. Speed, you inherit the speed from the base race. And then you also get any other special abilities that affect your speed. Like if you were doing a half-human goblin, goblins are small, but their speed's 30, so they still have the speed of 30. And like dwarves, who are medium-sized, but only have a 20-foot speed and have slow and steady, they keep slow and steady so that their speed is not further reduced by armor or encumbrance. And then if you have other speeds like fly speeds, climb speeds, they gain those as well. Basically, dark vision and low light vision, you get both of those based on whether your base race has them or not. If you have a race that has dark vision with a range of more than 60 feet, it gets reduced to 60 feet. They have a dual heritage trait, which basically the Pathfinder half-orcs and half-elves have, which basically say you count as both human and your base race for any effects that are related to the race. So if you're a half-human gnome and there's a ranger with favorite enemy gnomes, he's going to be able to apply it to you. Or whatever. Skilled. Half-humans gain an additional skill rank at first level and one additional rank whenever they gain a level. Unfortunately, you lose your bonus feat. Traits from the base race. Basically, I went through and I looked at what kind of common racial traits exist across multiple races. And then I just compiled a list of, like, in order, which ones you would get. And you get up to 2. So, weapon familiarity, hatred, defensive trading, racial skills, which is basically any trait that gives a racial bonus to a skill, natural armor. Those things all apply. You can get up to 2 of them. Your languages, basically half-humans begin speaking common, plus any languages known by the base race. And if you have a high intelligence character, they can choose any languages they want, because humans can get any language they want except for secret languages. Then half-humans can basically just learn any language as well. Anything additional that's not called out here specifically, you lose it from the base race. And then the last part, additional racial traits, alternate racial traits, I should say. Half-humans can take alternate racial traits from the base race or from the human, provided, of course, you have whatever racial trait that needs to be swapped out for. That's, in a nutshell, basically how the template works. And then from here on, we just have about a dozen or so. I think there's actually 13 examples where I've taken base races and I've applied the half-human template to it. Just in an effort to show by example, plus just to add more value to the PDF, where you could just go, oh, yeah, I want a half-human android, or I want to use this half-human drow. And then the half-drow and the half-elf and the half-orc, or half-human versions of those guys, are different than the half-elves and half-orcs. I think they provide kind of interesting differences, so that you could have a half-human orc if you wanted to as a PC character. So we have half-human drow. Sorry. Whoops. Went the wrong way. Half-human dwarf, half-human elf. Here on page 3, we've got the original art from Liz Quartz again for our half-elf. Or half-human elf in this case. Half-human Gorin. This is the interesting one because Gorons are plants, so this is humanoid augmented plant. Um, and I've provided some notes in here about half-human Gorons have the plant type. Plant type is really, really strong in Pathfinder, so I've called out that they shouldn't be immune to all of the things that plants are immune to. And that's kind of backed up by this, like I said, this was released in 2017, so this is using the Goron stats from the whichever bestiary they appear in, rather than the updated version from Ultimate Wilderness, which came out after this. And that was the last book last big hardcover book, really, that Paizo released for first edition, where they actually nerfed. They adjusted. I don't want to say nerf necessarily, but they did reduce the Gorons in power, so they don't have all these immunities either. You could basically just pull the stats out of Ultimate Wilderness, update that if you wanted to have the half-human Goron, which is a version from Ultimate Wilderness. Half-human gnomes, half-human goblins. This is another nice piece of stock art. This one's from Brian Brindley, and it's available through ttrpg. What else do we have? The other examples we have are half-human halflings, half-human hobgoblins, half-human kobolds, half-human nagaji. Here's a half-orc piece of half-orc stock art. This is also from Brian Brindley, a stock art available through ttrpg. So half-human orc, half-human strix. And then at the very end, we have a few new half-human alternate racial traits. So this is any character that has the half-human template is eligible to take these. You still have to have whatever trait they replace. Like mediator, half-humans with this racial trait gain a +2 racial bonus to diplomacy checks when dealing with someone who is neither human nor their parent race, and this replaces hatred, and that can replace a version of hatred either from like gnomes or dwarves. There are several races that have that hatred one. Weapon trained replaces weapon familiarity, so that you can just pick a weapon that you want. You can pick you get proficiency in all simple weapons, and may choose a single martial weapon to become proficient in. Defensive tactics replaces defensive training, which basically just gives you a +1 dodge bonus instead of the higher but more specific defensive abilities of some of the races. Daylight Child is one that half-humans with this trait gain the human bonus feat for racial traits. Then you can use it you can replace Daylight Child with another one. Like you can chain them out because there are human racial alternate racial traits that replace that bonus feat. Or if you just want the bonus feat, you can take Daylight Child, and you have to give up your Dark Vision for it. That seemed like a good trade. Beanpole, basically, if you're small size, like if you made a half-human version of that was combined with a small race, but you didn't actually want to be small, your size changes to medium. You lose all the benefits of being small, and your speed goes from 20 to 30. So that's basically what it is. Just a few options. Like I said before, the half-humans can take alternate racial traits from both their base race and humans. So that basically wraps it up. Hope that gives you a good idea of what's in half-human race template. I will put links in the description below to where you can get this PDF if you're interested in it. So thanks a lot and have a good day.